able to let the speakers know you have questions. And do you guys want to do Q&A during the session, or do you want to wait till the end? It's up to you.
Okay, so thank you so much, Timothy, for everything. It's for us, it's an honor to stay here. Okay, thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. Just only mention one thing. It's my colleague Roberto has a problem today because they, in CS, in support, sometimes we have some problems. So for the reason Roberto is not available, for the reason I request the help from my colleague Vitor Pombeiro. It's from Portugal, so to help me in this session. Okay, but everything is fine. Just only Roberto has another engagement, very urgent engagement for this. So first of all, thank you so much for attending this session about the lessons learned from the strangers. Just only mention that I will like is we are going to share with you some lessons learned. You know that we are working in support, so you know that we saw the bad things or the good things about the product. So we are not marketing people, so we work with the customers about what happened, what is the error, what is the problem. We are working in reactive mode. We try to fix the problem as soon as possible, and sometimes, and unfortunately, we cannot resolve that. Let's say that the customer expects. So we try always be sure that we always try to do all our effort in order to fix the problem. So what is my name is Jose Manuel Jurado. As you could see, I'm support escalation engineer in Microsoft for more than 10 years. I am master expert in SQL database, managed instance, also for the new open source that you know that we are working in Microsoft, MySQL, Progress and MariaDB, and speaker in different events. So with me, it's my colleague, Vitor, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. Good morning, good afternoon, or good night. My name is Vitor Pombeiro. Jose asked me to help him on this event since Roberto had an urgent engagement. So I'm an embedded escalation engineer on Azure SQL Database and Managed Instance. And like Jose, I'm also a speaker on several events, some of them with Jose, both of us.
No, thank you so much, Vitor, for your help here. Okay, what is the agenda for today? Okay, so we have some blogs that we are going to share with you at the end of the session. But what is the agenda for today? The first point is we are going to tell you a story about what happened during one Saturday when we were on call. We are going to talk about 3 different cases. One is we received at 2 a.m. because we were working in on call this Saturday night, and we received one call at 2 a.m. about a performance issue in SQL Saturday. What was, for example, the lesson learned that we learned in this situation? Also, we are going to talk about another call that we received 1 hour later about a performance issue in managed instance. Okay, finally, we are going to talk about another call that we received 1 hour later about a connectivity issue working in SQL database. This is a real cases. Okay, for sure, we eliminate all the details for the customers. Just only show you an example. What is the normal day that we have in working in Microsoft as support engineers, not just only in EMEA, just also in US, Asia, etc. So as we mentioned, it's a nightmare because I thought that, okay, most probably this SQL Saturday will be a very quiet day, but was not quite. Okay, I received multiple calls, and I'm going to show you in an urgency situation, critical situation with our customers. So we are going to talk about it. So what was the first call that we have? Let me give you some background about what happened. The first point, I received the call. In this case, I will try to do our best about Vitor will be the customer, okay? So he will Sorry, do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So we are going to work as a special conversation between the customer and super engineer. Okay, we try to simulate this conversation in this case, but let me please introduce what happened. What was the reason of the call? In this case, Vitor called me, say, okay, I have a problem. The problem is 100% of my application is not working well. They mentioned that they don't have any updates in the code for a long time. They didn't apply a new development for a long time, let's say 6 months. Was an unexpected issue. They don't know what happened. And also, they mentioned that the business is seriously impacted with around 1,000 users impacted. So you can imagine the situation that we have. We have a severity A, the application is not working or is working very slow, and we need to try to figure out what happened. Our customer mentioned, in this case, Vitor mentioned that they add data in the last 8 months, and they don't have any they don't have, or they didn't have any issue. And also in on-premise, when they ran this application, they took less than 20% of less time of execution. So what happened during this call? So Vitor, I have your application because, you know, I ran your application. Could you please explain what happened, Vitor?
Okay, so like I said on the support case I've opened with you guys, our application from moment start using a lot of CPU. We didn't did any change. There was no new developments that we have applied to this application. I have sent you a sample of the application that can replicate the issue. Have you tried it?
Yes, I implement this. Also, I see that right now, yes, it's true that the application is running very slow because I think that, okay, this number of operations per second is very, it's clear that you have a problem because it's not running well, no? Because I think that much probably you want to see more executions per second, right?
Yes, before this issue started, the number of executions was very high compared to now.
Okay, so okay, let's try to go to. I'm going to open the SQL, the portal, and I would like to go for the database. Okay, I'm going to the first thing that I would like to review is what happened with the database. Okay, for example, I'm going to review in the resource health to review if something happened with the database. This database is this is an example that we have. It seems that no, it's not happening anything in terms of resource health. All these things seems that is available, is working well. So I'm going to identify what is the problem because I would like to know first it's what happened in terms of resource consumption because I don't know if there is the application or is the database. So I'm going here and click in the overview, and I'm going to review the compute utilization. As you can see here, this database is a DTU. We have 10 DTUs. It's a standard 0. And it's clear that we have a huge resource consumption. Right now, it's 100 DTU. So I'm going to click here, and I would like to understand what happened because, as you know, using DTU, I don't know if the problem is CPU, I/O, or transaction log. So the first point, Vitor, I'm going to add a metric here, and I'm going to choose, for example, that I/O percentage. I'm going to choose the average because if I choose the max, will be, as you could see here in the right, it's a 1 minute. So I'm going to accumulate or aggregate the data in just only 1 minute. So I'm going to use the average. I would like to know what is the average consumption that we have in that I/O. So as you could see, it's 0. So it seems that we don't have any problem about that I/O. I'm going to add another one about the transaction log, because you know that is another important thing that also we don't see any relevant information. And I'm going to add here about CPU. So as you can see here, it's clear. I'm going to remove the DTU percentage, because DTU percentage is always, as you know, the maximum value of the three counters, data.io, log.io, and CPU. Okay, so, but it's clear that we have a problem. We have a problem in the database because for any specific reason, the CPU right now is 100% all the time. Okay, so you mentioned that you didn't apply any modification and you follow up the best practice about updated statistics, reveal indexes, etc. Right, Vitor?
Yes, exactly. And that is also the behavior we are seeing on our database.
Okay. Okay. So, okay, I think that Timothy, you are asking something about the slides.
If a slide is showing.
It's just only the slides, so it's not. I'm not showing the
I can't see him. I can't see him. I didn't know if anybody else could. I didn't want to mess anybody up.
I see the portal, Azure portal now.
Okay, sorry guys. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Okay, perfect. Sorry. Okay, perfect. Okay, so in this case, one thing that most probably it's when we have 100% of the CPU will be, for example, the number of connections. So for the reason, I'm going to also I'm going to click in the new chart, and I'm going to choose, for example, right now the successful connection. So I would like to know how many connections that you have right now. So as you could see here, just only no more than 102 or one connection is causing right now this problem. So it seems that you don't have too much users using the application. So it's clear that something happened with the query. So let me add a new metric that is very important for us. It's about to review the number of workers, because you know that could be also about running in parallel several queries. So also, as you can see, the number of workers that we have is just only 1% that the total workers that we have. So it's clear that for this, with this data, it's clear that something happened with one query. This query is not running in parallel, and just only you have one user. You agree with this data, right, Peter?
Yes, that is also what we are seeing here.
Okay, so let's try to, in this case, you mentioned that you follow up the best instructions about the statistics, reveal indexes, but let me try to review, for example, if we have any performance recommendation, because you know that using the automatic tuning, for example, we could add or we could instruct to the SQL that if you think, or if SQL thinks that, okay, I need to create an index, drop the index of forza plans, we could have this in automatic way. So right now we have on. So right now SQL it's evaluating every day, every time the queries that right now it seems that I'm going to click here in the performance recommendation, and also it's clear that you don't have any recommendations. So about any index, any missing indexes, etc. It's something happened that could be the problem with the platform, okay, or could be a problem with your queries. So in this way, I'm going to click here, Query Performance Insight, because it's another option that we have. I would like to review what happened, okay? So as you can see, we have the top query, it's 5%. This is the top queries. In terms, right now, it's clear that we need to use CPU because data.io, log.io is not taking too much time. But it's clear that something happened about the overall for this query. As you could see, the CPU for the query number 632 is taking around 70% or 70% of the CPU. So if I scroll down a little bit here, you could see that we have query IDs. We have many query IDs, but one is that take my attention is the query 632. That, as you can see, the duration of the duration is more than 1 hour. Is not using any data.io or log.io, but you have a lot of execution. So let's try to review what happened, because I would like to understand what happened with this query. Most probably will be a very, very complex query. So, okay, so right now, this is the query. You could recognize this query, Vitor?
Yes, it's one of the most used queries on our application.
Okay, but it's a very simple query. You are obtaining the number of rows that you have for one query based on one parameter. So it seems that it's not expensive, right?
No, it shouldn't be. At least in the past, it was not.
Okay, but you mentioned that you add some rows, many rows during these last 8 months, right?
Yes, we had a restructure on our company and we had to add a lot of information to the database.
Okay, so we are not going to, in order to share just only let me to put a break here. Normally, we are not able to get access to the data of the customer. Okay, we have internal telemetry data, but in order just only share my one desktop, I'm going to evaluate. I'm going to review the data. Okay, so Vitor, let me go to the table. It's performance this table. Okay, but regarding the query, let me go to the query again. Let me put here. So the query mentioned that it's performance varchar text. So you have 2 columns. Okay, 1 second. It could be possible. Yeah. Yes, it's possible. So you have two columns in this table. It seems that you have an index. Let me check if you have. We are using the index. 1 second. Come on. Yes, it's using a lot the CPU because it's not able to obtain the indexes. Okay, but okay. Anyway, this is the index that we have right now. Okay, for this field, it's a strain. So the situation that we have. So let's try to. In order to identify what is the problem, let me go to the query store. Okay, 1 second. I'm going to stop here. Yep.
You have a question?
Yes. Yes, it's automatic. Yes, you could disable or enable if you want. Yes. Yep. So as you could see here, the number of the query exceeds 632. So the idea is, in Query Store, you know that the Query Store is a special repository that we have multiple information that how was the executions. We have many queries, many options that we have that we are going to talk in another session that we have in a couple of hours. But in this case, I would like to know what happened with this query. Okay, I'm going to click here in Tracked Query. I'm going to open this one, and I'm going to type the number of the query, 632. I'm going to minimize this. Okay, so, as you can see, Vitor, we have, right now, we have the same client ID, so we don't have any regression. Okay, this is good. Right now we have cycle and square. You know that square means that the query was canceled, as you can see here. And also you can see in the cycle that the query is completed, but in terms of average, it's taking too much time. As you can see here, it's taking too much time. So we have here the execution plan. Everything is fine. So, but one thing that pay my attention, Vitor, you are using clustering this scan. So because you mentioned that we have an index, it's taking the 90% of the cost of the query. So I don't know why this is the reason right now. As you could see, every executions, I think that we have an explanation, because as you could see in the estimated number of rows, every time that you run this query is reading more or less 400,000 rows every time. So it seems that yes, this query, depending also the database tier that you have, is taking too much time. Okay, also a lot of our resources. We have the number of rows is this, computer scalar, and we have a select and we have a warning. Okay, in this warning, it seems that you have a problem about special conversion, Vitor. Are you aware about this conversion?
No.
No?
No, I was not
okay.
aware.
It seems that most probably they convert to mvarchar, converted to mvarchar from varchar or varchar to mvarchar. So let's try to review one thing, okay? So it seems that as we remember, the query, 1 second, because we have this property, sorry. You could see here, thanks to query data store, you have the properties. We could see, for example, the parameter list, okay? So as you could see here, the column that you are using that is called name, you are using this value, okay? This is the compile value. And as you could see, you are using mvarchar, okay? So the parameter, it's using mvarchar, but it seems that if we extract the structure of the table, you are using varchar. So at the beginning, you have this problem. Did you have this problem at the beginning when you ran this process?
I don't recall having this change, but why is this causing this high CPU usage?
It's a very good question. Most probably, let me review one thing. Let me run the query again. Let me to copy the query, for example. Okay, I'm going to run the query. I'm going to obtain the execution plan. Okay. I'm going to tap here, for example, Vitor. Let me specify the same format that we have the parameter value. It's taking time, yes. Also, the execution plan, they mentioned that, yes, they are using cluster index scan. But the problem that it seems that based on the number of rows, they need to, every time that in order to satisfy this query, this SQL needs to read all the rows and is using the cluster index instead to use this index. Most probably, based on the number of rows that you add during these last 8 months, at the beginning, you didn't have this problem, but when you are adding more rows, it's causing that SQL needs to read more rows, and the end is causing this problem. Let me change one thing. Let me to compare. Let me copy and paste this query again, and I'm going that the value of this column is varchar. I'm going to change this value. Sorry, I need to choose the execution plan. And it's taking, as you can see, it's taking less time. So also, as you can see, we have a big difference in terms of execution plan, Vitor, because as you can see, right now, SQL is using the index. Okay, and also, as you can see in the number of executions, it's using just only, it's just only, the estimated number of execution is just only 1, okay? So for the reason, and also we don't have the warning message here because it seems that right now we are using the right parameter value type that you are using in your application because you are using mvarchar here that is causing that SQL needs to make this conversion, this implicit conversion for every row that you have. Most probably, this is the reason. I don't know if you agree, but we could modify your code and try to reproduce the issue. What do you think?
Sure. As long as the issue is mitigated, I'm happy.
Okay. Yes, for sure. This is my intention. So I'm going to go to the application. Okay. I'm going to stop here. So I saw that the application is you are doing this. I think that you are doing the best practice. That I remember that we have a discussion previously about the retry logic. This is very important in SQL. SQL Azure, MySQL, etc., in order to establish the retry logic, because sometimes your server will not available because we are doing something, or you know that we are running in always on environment. So in this case, I think that it's clear that you're using a retry logic to try to retry the connection. But let me take an eye. Yeah, it seems it's this parameter. Yes, it's parameter. Let me change this value. Okay, and I'm going to run again the query. Okay. 1 second here. Okay, yes, it's true. So the execution is much faster than previously. Yes, we fixed the problem.
Now it looks like how it was before the issue. Okay. The number of executions is now as expected.
That you expect, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. It's great to know that at the end it's clear that something happened about it. Okay. Thank you so much, Vitor. Let me go back to the presentation.
Just a side note for people that have joined later.
Yes.
Jose, as a support engineer, he doesn't have access to the database or the customer application, okay? This was just to be more simple on screen sharing. Jose was sharing also the application and the database and the portal from the customer side, but we don't have access. We need to have a remote call with the customer, and customer has to agree with us to share his screen and follow our instructions.
Okay, so what is our lesson learned? The intention about this case is to show you how the portal and the query data store help us. Okay, as you could see, was easy in order to identify the problem based on the information that we have. You have the information in the portal, in the query store, etc. Other lesson learned, it's about review your code, okay? Because it's clear that depending on the number of rows, the database type counts. Other lesson learned that working in as support engineers is please try to test in advance, okay? Because sometimes one query could run perfectly at the beginning of the project, but could take more time when in the process of this process and the end of the project, or when you are adding more data. So it's very important that test with a number of rows that you consider that your table will have, okay, in order to avoid this type of problems. Also, it's clear that during this conversation, I never said this before, but during the conversation, I suggest to the customer, in order to scale up to the maximum level that we have in database with 32 vCores, 40 vCores, etc. Even we have a problem in terms of CPU because this customer has more rows. Okay, so sometimes, not always, a bigger database tier helps in your problem. So always our suggestion is try to review your code. Okay, it's very important. If you want to pay less for the cost of your instructor tour, try to optimize your code. Try to optimize the application. Okay, because if not, you are going to, or you need to pay more about this process. Other lesson learned that we have is, as I mentioned before, if you want to save your money, please invest in your diagnostics. Okay, we have other diagnostics that I'm going to show you later, but it's very important about invest your time and let Microsoft the instructor. And finally, I would like to, if you want to implement your monitoring code, we have in this link one GitHub that it's possible for every query that you have, in order, for example, to know the time that the query took, for example, for example, also thanks to this option about retrieve statistics of the SQL connection object of .NET, we have other information about, for example, the network server time, the execution time of the query, what was the connection time in order to reach the server, the round trips, the buffer received. So all these things you could use in your code in order to have every query and every process and everything that you're doing to have all the control about the connection, the execution, etc. Okay, so this was our lesson learned in this case. Okay, so let me go to the next query. Before, Vitor, I remember with you that this is the typical things that we are following when we have a performance problem. As you could see, I asked to Vitor about if you update the statistic, if you review the missing indexes, etc. This is the basic things. Normally, I don't know, Vitor, you agree with me, but the 70% of the situations, update the statistics and reveal the missing indexes fix the problem, right?
Yes, regarding troubleshooting, it's good to have a based ground to start troubleshooting, because it doesn't matter troubleshooting if the statistics are outdated or the indexes, if you have indexes issues. So that first start with the basic and then go to the more complex situations.
Yeah. Other, as you mentioned, more complex situations, it's clear that when this was my first steps, my first phase was to try to ask about update statistic and missing indexes. But right now, after it was more complex, because my next action was to tune the query, analyze the execution plan, review the query in timeouts, blocking, etc. Okay, but in this case, just only we need to review the query. So this was the path in our lesson learned that we use in order to try to find the problem. Always try to ask this question, use the diagnostics, use the advisor. If not, try to investigate the missing indexes, review query store. We have other tool that we are not going to show you right now, but we are going to show you in the next sessions. That is called SQL auditing. We have query performance inside. Other things that we learn, it's about also reduce the fragmentation, okay? And other thing is try to, as you could see, try to review if you have sufficient DTU or vCore for the workload that you have. If after these 4 steps, if you are not able to find what is your problem, it's clear that you could call us using the portal, and we are going to be more than happy in order to work with you in order to fix the problem. Okay, so this was the first call. I don't know if you have any question before to go to another call about this this first lesson learned.
No questions.
Okay, great. So let's go to the second call that we have. Yeah.
There is a question. I'm sorry. Sandeep is asking about what about heap tables?
About heap tables. Well, depending on the situation, also. We don't have indexes, yes, but depending on the filter, this applies for everything, for heap tables, for column store indexes, non-cluster index, XML indexes, and the end is an example. So the intention in this session, beside the type, the database type, etc., is to show you how easy, let's say, how easy is try to find the problem using the portal, the query store. We have many other tools, okay? But the main idea is to show you this example, okay?
Yes, heap tables have their own space. That's why they they still exist. They are not the main concern of performance issues. We need to understand exactly what caused the performance. If the performance is because we are using a heap table, then try to convert it to a clustered table. But don't assume that the heap table is the source of the performance issue. Okay.
No, it's very important. Our lesson learned working with the developers. For example, I saw one developer that they have a table with 700 millions of rows using standard zero, okay, without any problem. They use several techniques about to obtain data. They are paying less. Other customers are using another big tables or with databases. But also, I think that is very important, as I mentioned before, use the diagnostic tools, use query performance insight, try to be, I'm not going to say very smart. I'm going to say that try to remember that you pay for the service. Okay, so if you try to optimize your code, I'm sure that you are going to pay less for in the factor. Okay, so let's go to another call that we have 3 a.m. We have another call. Let me explain the background. This customer got 2 issues. Okay, using a managed instance, they want to know, or they want to have all the query that they are executing, and also they have a random issue. They have an error, but they don't know how to identify this problem running in managed instance. You know that in SQL database, in single instance SQL databases, there is not possible to run, for example, SQL profiler that in the normal way that we use in on-premise. But we have other alternatives also in managed instance. Okay, so in this call, I'm going to show to Vitor what is the way in order to, let's say, meet these 2 things about the number of queries and obtain the error. Okay, so let me show you again. I'm going to share my desktop with you again. This is my managed instance. As you can see, this is my managed instance. I'm using the public endpoint. You know that managed instance, you have private endpoint and public endpoint. I'm not going to go more deeper about the configuration, networks, etc., because there is not the purpose of this meeting. But for example, Vitor, I would like to show you several ways in order to obtain the data. The first thing is, Vitor, you could use the SQL Server Profiler in the similar way that you did in on-premise. I'm going to open right now SQL Profiler. Just 1 second here. 1 second here. I'm going to, yeah. So I think that this screen is familiar for you, no, Vitor?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to type the user and password. Oh, I typed something wrong. 1 second. 1 second. Yes, because I choose another server. 1 second. Okay. So go back to this message. This is in the similar way that we did in on-premise. You could choose your event selection. You could apply filters. You could choose in the similar way that you are doing in on-premise, and you could click run. And also, you are going to see all the queries that you have in your managed instance in the similar way that we have in on-premise. One recommendation: you know that SQL Server profile has some impact, okay, in your instance. So what is the recommendation? My recommendation is don't use this one, okay, because you have some impact in terms of performance, but you could do it if you need to work in the similar manner that you are working previously in on-premise. As you can see, you have several things, and also you could see in the application name DMV collector. This is that internal tools that we have in order to collect the data about your application, about your server, about the CPU, about the queries that you are running, etc. Okay, but let me show you, Vitor, another way in order to obtain this data. As you could see in the last SQL Server Management Studio, you could see that we have one thing that is called Extended Event Profiler. I think that you are aware about it, right, Vitor?
Yes, from SQL Server Core.
Yes, so you know that it's is the impact to enable the extended events. It's less, they have less impact to use a SQL profiler. Okay. So for the reason you have the same, you have two profilers. Let's say you have the standard ones and the TS SQL ones, and the end is the same. Okay, it's the same that we have in SQL Server Profiler. Just only you need to launch the session. And in a couple of minutes, I don't know, or seconds, you are going to have again the list of the queries that you are running in the similar way. For example, in T-SQL, if you launch also the T-SQL comment statement, you are going to have the similar query. For example, let me run anything. See, for example, EMV or exec. Okay, so at the end, you are going to have the same. So it's another way in order to see what happened with my connections, what happened with the time. Also, you could choose in the columns, you could choose other queries, other columns about the transaction count in this point. As you could see, you have text data, execution time, etc. So it's another way in order to obtain data. Okay. We have many other options. For example, you know that Microsoft is working a lot using Azure Data Studio. Okay, so also in Azure Data Studio, no, we don't have time. But in Azure Data Studio, we have another we have another profiler. So you could use also Data Studio in order to, for example, to obtain data. Okay, for example, here, I don't want to spend more time here because I would like to, if you right click and run the profiler and just specify the password, everything it's working well. Second, launch profiler. Okay, start. Also, you are going to have the same queries, the same process, the same what happened in the application, etc. So at the end, you have the same tools that you have in on-premise, okay, in managed instance. And unfortunately, in SQL database, that is not possible. In SQL instance, you have, as I mentioned, query store, etc. But it's another way. So another question that you have, Vitor, about and with errors. I would like to, 1 second, let me stop here the sessions.
Yes, because we have several applications that are connecting to our database, and we want to understand what is the query that is getting the error, and from there the application.
Okay, for you, I have two things for you. Okay, I have one. It's as you could see, we have the options to create or extended events. Okay, for example, I create, in order to simulate this problem, we create this store procedural that is waiting for 10 seconds. We create a special credential in order to save this data. In order to save this data in this file, for example, I have two extended events. One is in order to obtain errors, and other one is to obtain the timeouts that we are going to use in the connection part. So basically, it's very simple. I'm going to skip this part of the demo, but I would like to show you what happened. At the end, any error that you have, this is my Blob Store account. I have two. as you could see here. One is error persistent error when we have an error. As you could see here, I'm going to open this file. It's an extended event, Vitor. So come on. Okay, it's download the file.
That's good that is being saved on an Azure storage account, because saving on our on-premises would take a lot more time. Saving on Azure, it will be faster.
Yes, also Manuel is running this. Other things that you have in your managed instance, you have other way that if you open the management, also I know that you are from on-premise, so you could see, for example, the error logs. So the error logs, as you could see, is the similar way that we have in on-premise. So you could have all the information. It's clear that we are doing more backups in managed instance, but at the end is the similar way that we have. Also, we have SQL agent, etc. So I'm going to go to the presentation. Okay. What was our lesson learned in this, Vitor? So the SQL Server profile works. Okay, and using the SQL Server Management Studio, we have a new standing events. Also, I didn't show you, but I could show you that you could use also the reports. For example, you know that using, for example, here, you have several reports that, for example, you could choose, I don't know, the blocking transaction report. Okay, so at the end is the similar way that you have in your on-premise. Most probably some report is not working depending on the situation or depending on the query that we are running, but also you could use this in managed instance. Okay, let's go to the presentation. The most important thing, I think, that is you are using the same tools, Peter.
No, just to tell you about the time.
Okay, so just only I would like to show you another things before finish this presentation, because we have another section. It's about Azure Diagnostic. As you know, all these things, instead to use also the tools that we are using, you could also use another tool that is called Azure Diagnostic. Let me show you an example. So all the information that is capturing in this database, for example here, for example, you could add in some workspace, you could add details about automatic tuning, runtime statistics, wait stats, error, wait statistics, timeouts, etc. I created this before this session, as you could see here. Just only I give an example because we are going to cover this with more time, and also in the next in 2 hours in the session. You could see, for example, here another graphics about, as you could see here, that this report mentioned that, okay, you have a problem. The CPU of your database, this database in .NET sample is 99%. So it seems that something happened in your table, in your database. Okay, so you could see here that several reports about the consumption, etc. And you could see other queries, other situations that at the end you could obtain the same query, okay, that we obtained previously. So at the end, using these diagnostics, also you have another way in order to detect this information. I don't know, Vitor, if this cover this question in this case.
Yes. If I have some questions, I will search for the online documentation. And if I still have the questions, I will contact the support.
Okay, thank you so much, Vitor.
Hey guys,
so, yes.
Just real quick, it's 9 minutes till, so I probably want to wrap up here in a little bit. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to skip the demos in this session about the connectivity. Okay, again, we have another problem. Okay, that the customer, again, they don't have any updates in the code, no new development for the long time, and expect an issue. They have a problem. Every time that they run something, they get an error or a timeout. So in this demo, we used to explain how we found this information. Okay, but at the end, what is our lesson learned? Always is please review the portal, the diagnostic tools, because in the diagnostic tools also, as you could see here, if I go back in the overview, you could see one thing that is called timeout, okay, or errors or blockings. You could detect all the information, all the problems that you have in your database. It's important review the best practice. We don't have time right now, but also it's very important about the VNet configuration, using the prepaid IP, etc. Vitor and myself, we would like to explain how it's very important in SQL how the connection works. Remember that every time that you try to connect from outside Azure, you are going to connect through a special gateway. Okay, it's not a direct connection to your server. In order to protect the connection, we used to have a gateway that control the connection. Control the connection means that if someone tried to connect your server using a wrong password and wrong user, we are going to stop this. And if you try multiple times, we could, for example, reject the connection from this IP for one specific time. Okay. Also, if you're connecting, from within Azure, it's very important to know that the first connection always will go to the gateway, but you are going to connect directly to the server that your database is running. And for the reason, it's very important about the port to open the outbound port from 11 and until 11,000 to 12,000. Okay. So other lesson learned in terms of connectivity, you could see that we create 4 groups in terms of connections, configuration, prevention, execution, and monitor. And we try to explain all these best practice in terms of connectivity based on our lesson learned that we have working in Microsoft. Okay, how to prevent problems in terms of configuration, how to prevent problems in terms of when you establish the connection. It's very important, for example, try to highlight, for example, use connection pooling, use contained user instead logins. It's clear, avoid to have idle connections, etc. In terms of executions, I would like just only to highlight about to try to avoid the typical problem that we have with select start, and about monitoring. You could see we have many other tools and options that you see. Okay, we have many other topics. Just only to highlight the last part. We receive many questions using linked server. You know that it's possible to use linked server to connect from your managed instance to your another managed instance or to your on-premise server. We saw several connectivity issues, or when our customer try to compare the performance, they say, okay, it seems that using linked server takes more time than the normal way. In this article, you could see what is different. We saw that linked server is using the packet side, it's using SQL Management Studio using 8,000, but linked server is using 4,000. If you modified this parameter in terms of connectivity, you are going to have, let's say, the same performance in order to retrieve data from the SQL Management Studio. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. Just only to highlight one thing, and I'm going to stop. Every time that you create a support case for us, you could see one thing that is very important for us. It's about is this. It's help and support. Or my colleagues, one colleague that we have here in Portugal, create a very good tool. Let me show you 1 second.
As Jose is showing you how to create a support request, when
Yep.
you are creating a support request, after you select here what is your issue, we will run some queries on your resources to try to identify some common issues. And if we identify those common issues, we will show you some information. Okay, here you can see the executing.
Yes, it's very important because right now it's very important to follow up the recommended solutions, because we saw that sometimes just only follow up these recommendations will be the best part, the best thing in order to fix the problem. We have also a specific PowerShell command that is called one second, I'm going to the presentation again.
Hey guys, it's 3 minutes
Yes.
till the hour. We need to kind
Okay.
of wrap up, please.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much. I finished. Okay.
So are you guys going to send the slides and the link for this presentation?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
we're recording this, and they're gonna post the slides onto the web.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. I don't know if you have any questions in order to.
Not as of now. Looks good as so far.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay. So again, thank you so much for attending this session, and see you in another session.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Timothy, I think you are still recording.